Lovely. So, morning everyone. My name is Kim Tolley and I'm currently the Head of Implementation Services for Eploy. So today I'm going to be talking about hints and tips for kind of connecting your different technologies, basically integrations. So, key thing is, where do we start? So I often think about looking at what is your utopia, what's your ideal scenario. Think about what your perfect process would be and what that would look like if you could have anything that you would like. So think about things of what would you connect and what would you have that you don't have today. Next, you need to think about, can you actually do that? So a really key thing is, do you do something now or do you use it now? How much change can you handle, both as a business and also as a team for deliverables? And do you have the infrastructure that can support it? And then a really key thing is, what's in your budget? Can you actually afford to do the things that you would like to do? So moving on, thinking about why integrate. So user experience, finding top talent, having leaner processes, and then also in terms of compliance as well. So in terms of user experience, quite often a good thing to look at is the candidate experience, so actually improving that journey, but also thinking about your actual users as well, so in terms of your recruiters, your hiring managers, your HR teams, your payroll teams. And then on to finding top talent. So integrating solutions can quite often then help you to find your top talent quicker and also to help you build stronger talent pools faster. And then into leaner processes. So we look at how we can save time, how we can reduce errors, and how we can also save money as part of the process. And then finally, key thing for me, which I think is really quite important, but I love this kind of stuff, is around your compliance. So how you can actually get compliance to your processes and how you can do things like collecting certain mandatory information. So what should we connect? So there are lots of options. These are a few here. So single sign-on, APIs, HR and payroll, checks such as background checks, and then also into video interviewing, and then also through into things like testing providers. So to take each in turn, single sign-on can be a great experience for hiring managers and recruiters. If you're not worrying about having queries coming up like how do I log in, resetting my passwords, those kind of things, then actually single sign-on can be a great way to go. It can be a very quick win for a kind of relatively small amount of money in the grand scheme of things. And things like that work really well with APIs. So in terms of updating things like your company or department records in the system, and also contacts and users, and that works really, really well. They go hand in hand with single sign-on. Moving then through to HR and payroll, so actually exporting your new starter data to your HRIS, whether that be kind of standalone HR, payroll, or both. And then also checks. So checks are quite important in a number of different ways. And these can be done as part of your onboarding process, but they can also happen as well as part of an earlier part in the journey. So for instance, if you have a particular process where you need to vet candidates, you can do a lot of that data gathering up front and then just kick in that integration at the right point of the process. Video interviewing, it's one of the kind of a Marmite type thing. You love it or hate it. I'm personally a fan of it. But that can really improve not only your candidate journey, in terms of how you kind of asking them to answer questions, but you also get a great experience as a recruiter and a hiring manager to actually see that candidate kind of face to face without the logistics involved in the travel of that. And then finally, testing providers. So a number of different ways you can do that. So everything from kind of basic numeracy and literacy tests right up to personality profile. So improving your insights in your candidates and how you can actually work with different information on the candidate rather than just asking them some kind of fairly basic application questions. So what does success look like? So there are a number of different things for me, but it basically means happy people across the board for me. So candidates, recruiters, hiring managers, HR and payroll, and then finally IT and security. So to look at each of those in turn, so candidates, what we're looking for really is a seamless process from the time they engage with your business, so from your career site, right the way through to their application, their interview journey, and right the way through into onboarding. We're looking to enhance that experience as best we can and making it a completely seamless process. Recruiters, so giving them the tools they need to do the job, but how to help better assess candidates, and again, that same point, finding their top talent quicker, which improves your time to hire and your cost to hire. So happy recruiters. Moving on to hiring managers. Hiring managers are typically looking to source better qualified candidates quicker. So hopefully with kind of making that process more seamless and more joined up, you can achieve that, to have happy hiring managers. And then finally, sometimes these kind of groups of people can be missed out or not thought of as much, but there's a massive impact for your HR and payroll teams, certainly in terms of reducing or having no manual keying whatsoever. So there's that kind of double entry sometimes with data, so integrations can definitely remove that. And also improve the quality of the data collection that you have, because you can have validations built into those integrations too. And then finally, in terms of the compliance, IT and security. So you can synchronise that data, so things like single sign-on can certainly help you in terms of blocking and adding users, but also improve your compliance around things like consent, and also then other IT and security related queries. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time. So you can just see some details on here about some of our ebooks and some of our case studies. So if you'd like to have a look at those and go online and take a look, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
We have a workforce of hourly employees, and we have this huge contracting workforce of casual workers. At any given point in time, we'll have 6,000 plus people sitting on our database. Some days we may have 6,000 plus people out to work. Some days we may have 200. So we're a hugely fluctuating contracting organisation, but those casual workers, they work for 3 or 4 different companies at any given moment in time. And in London, if there are all sorts of events on, rugby, football, tennis, cricket, we're all competing in the same pool. So we've got to be different and better than our competitors to compel people to want to work for us over them. So our legacy process was very, very decentralised. The units were all doing it themselves. It was mega paper heavy. Compliancy was hit and miss. I used to not sleep very well at night. There were really bad audit issues. And most importantly for me, the candidate experience was variable, sometimes really good, sometimes really dreadful. The time to hire was a catastrophe, and we lost a really huge amount of candidates. I couldn't really tell you how many because we couldn't measure anything. The quality of candidates was also variable because we didn't have really a plan. Couldn't tell you how much it cost to hire anybody. The talent pool, I don't know how engaged it was because I don't know what it was. The hiring manager and the recruiter experience was fractured. The recruiters thought they were doing a good job. The hiring managers were slating my team. The paper process, I've never seen anything quite like it. People used to go to these huge assessment days at the venues, and they'd come back with suitcases full of paperwork and then sit for days on end manually entering it into a database. And we weren't really hitting our compliance requirements. Right to work used to make me panic. And so it was just a hot mess. The volume hiring is our lifeblood, and it was our biggest broken piece, and it was our biggest need to fix. The speed to hire was critical, and because it was all broken, we were relying heavily on agencies, which was costing us a lot of money, and we had no real control over anything that we were doing. So when I arrived, I was asked, this is the single biggest thing that we need you to fix, and we need you to fix it first. It's the heart of what we do. And this was the beginning of my relationship with Eploy. And the first thing I said to them was, we've got this system that is just in the process of being put in. It had just been commissioned as I arrived. And I didn't know much about it. But what I did know in terms of what had been commissioned was that it was for professional hiring. And our biggest broken piece of work was the bulk hiring. And that was the beginning of our journey. Over the next 8 years, we have incrementally gone down the road together, and this is what we did. Eploy and I sat down and agreed that we needed to very quickly build a process in the ATS for our bulk hiring, which didn't exist at the time. We didn't want a different system, so Eploy and my team built a parallel bulk hiring process in the system that sat alongside the professional hiring process. And to this day, we have 2 parallel processes depending on what type of candidate you are. They also built me a careers portal. I'm on my 3rd generation of that careers portal, because the other thing that we learned is careers portals continually change and we need to keep up with the market. So we kept it really simple, and every 2 to 3 years we change it, we refresh it, and their guys sit with us and say, this is what looks cool and trendy these days, this is what we think you should do. We have a lot of fun, and we change it. We work with my parent company on branding and make sure that we're aligned with our overarching message and our employee value proposition, but Eploy own it, so it's all very seamless. When we had sorted out the bulk hire candidate journey and got it to a much better place, because with casuals we don't need to do the big onboarding piece, I went back to my business and said, what do you want me to fix next? What is the next big headache in the field? And they said the hiring process for employed people. So we then went down the road and put in the hiring manager portal where the requisition process happens. And that was an alleluia moment for our field managers. They suddenly had much more visibility into the applicants, depending on who they are and what business they're in and how much involvement they do or don't want to have. The hiring managers now can take ownership and accountability to the right level of their own candidate pools. What helps us enormously is recs don't go missing. There's governance over the hiring process. And that, within itself, really reduced our time to hire for candidates, the authorization, the sign-off, the visibility, and the tracking. After that, it became a no-brainer that we would put in the onboarding portal, because we were able to map the hiring manager portal into the onboarding portal. So for me, in the back office with my team, we were able to lift offer management out of the HR team, which was a manual process, and we worked with Eploy to make it all automated. So whatever was in the hiring manager portal at the point of offer became an automated e-sign offer portal for the candidate. So for the candidate, their whole experience suddenly became significantly different from how it had been previously. What became really exciting then was we were able to talk to Eploy about interfacing and integrating the system with other systems that we had. We have a pre-hire portal for the casuals, and we have an induction portal for the employees, and we fully integrated it into the Eploy onboarding portal. So now, before people even get into work, all of that is in a seamless journey within the onboarding portal. Because we have this huge contracting workforce, we have a very sophisticated time and attending system for workforce management, where people self-select their shifts, make themselves available, bid, et cetera, because that is our lifeblood. And we were struggling on how to get people from A to B. So Eploy worked with that vendor, and we now have an interface between the two systems. So when the casual workforce have been accepted, we automatically transfer them straight into the workforce management system. Additionally, now that all of our onboarding is automatic, we also now export the employed workforce to our HRIS system, which previously had been a double handling process. I think our epiphany moment came about 18 months ago, where one of our major clients, a Premiership football club, with the backdrop of all of the terror attacks 2 years ago, met with us and said that unprecedented in our industry, which is unregulated, they wanted us to background check every single person that worked for us, every single casual, whether they work two weekends a month or 1 weekend a month or 5 days a week. Even though they're not employed, every single person needed to have a background check to work in their venue. This presented us with an enormous challenge, not only from a legal point of view, but from a practicality point of view. And the fact that if we put a process like that in place to a casual worker who could go out and get a weekend job 10 a penny in London, how are we ever going to do that without disrupting their experience, making it arduous for them, and making it much easier for them to go and work for one of our competitors, none of whom do this. So we sat down, we went through an RFP, we picked a background checking company who were prepared to break all boundaries and build a process whereby when people apply to work for us at Delaware North and put their application in our ATS, with all the right sign-offs, their journey through to landing in our workforce management system goes all the way through and through the background checking vendor from our Eploy system automatically. If there's anything missing from their application, clearly the vendor will contact them, but they don't have to do anything. It's all done through automation because of the way we've made the systems work together. So we have Eploy, the vendor, and the workforce management system have all collaborated. We spent many months process mapping it and building the workflows. We heard yesterday that we've just done our number 5,000 check in just over a year on our workforce. And so we haven't seen any attrition in our attraction or in our conversion rates as a result. And our client is very happy, thankfully. So in terms of summarising of our journey, wins, learns and takeaways, there have been some amazing wins. There have been some huge learns and takeaways. As a company, we've doubled in the last 4 years, and we've spread our geographic reach. But we've only added one member to our recruitment team because we've been able to scale due to the infrastructure that we've built. So we've been able to focus on doing the right thing, having relationships with the field operators and connecting with our candidates instead of wheeling suitcases around the UK and punching stuff in. The candidate experience we know is significantly different from surveys. We've reduced our time to hire, and the quality of our candidates is much better. We 100% feel safe. I don't wake up at night worrying about compliance anymore. The administration has been smashed out of the park. It just doesn't really exist anymore. That's been a really big win, and the GDPR module in our system is just genius. And the field are involved at the right time. The managers can be as involved or not as involved as they want to be, and that's really helped in our relationship management with the people that we see as our customers. Our learns have been, we are literally not the experts. I think we started off thinking we knew best, and we didn't. So that's been helpful for us to take counsel and advice and guidance from people that are specialists in this field. We can progress much faster in that way. Nothing is forever. So I think initially, early days, we used to build stuff and think, great, done. And then, 6 months later, think, oh, if only we'd done this, if only we'd done that. So the mindset is very much, this is an evolving story. It's always got to change to stay ahead of the game. Project management is a skill. You need the right people to keep this alive, to keep evolving and keep making sure that we've got the best solution and the best experience for our candidates and our hiring managers. And we've got to be good at project managing to deliver that. And that hand in hand, that goes with deadlines. So we weren't very good at project managing these projects initially, and we were always missing deadlines, so we were over-promising and under-delivering. So that needed to change. And our takeaways are to always look through the lens of the candidates and the hiring managers and not to look through the lens of HR. We used to do that initially, and we used to think we were building great stuff, and then we'd go out and say, hey, look, and the managers would say, this is not what we want. So it's a collaboration. It's not an HR or recruitment piece of work. Our other learn and takeaway really was to always try and break what we're building, because it's better to break it before we launch it than find out it didn't work after. And that we've never finished. I think that was one of our biggest takeaways. It's always changing, it's always evolving, and to always have a mindset of what's next so that we stay competitive, so that the candidates always want to come and work for us instead of our competitors. The sort of my final example is we are currently putting in a job architecture to our company in terms of we're building a career framework. And the job architecture we're putting in, I couldn't even have imagined even a year ago that we could have put into our company It's a global architecture. It's going to be so great for people who want to really progress their careers internationally, but even to help people have clarity on how to develop themselves to be the best them. We couldn't have done this if we hadn't got this tool to where it is now, because we're upgrading the hiring manager portal, Eploy are customizing it for us, and it's only been possible to do what we're doing because of the journey we've been on. And that's my story about our recruitment strategy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alison. Very insightful. Thank you very much. It was a journey, it sounds like.
It's definitely been a journey.
Does anyone have any questions for Alison in the first instance? No. So come on up. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So you've got me again. So as Natasha said, the Barratt Developments project was delivered by myself with the Barratt team. So Barratt, hopefully you're aware of, so house builders, but they encompass a couple of different brands. So Barratt Homes is the one you're probably most familiar with, and then also David Wilson Homes and Barratt London as well. So they are a large business, so they have 27 divisions, and then all of their kind of group support, kind of head office and support functions. Around 6,000 employees with quite a large in-house recruitment team that has quite different complexities of how they work. So they certainly have an in-house team directly in kind of like the main head office that looks after lots of kind of like the permanent or the kind of the corporate side of recruitment. And then they also have kind of like divisional kind of like HR administrators, recruitment administrators that manage within the individual functions and in the divisions as well. And a very, very different requirement from those users to those who are kind of doing the bulk process. So very, very similar to Alison and her journey, a need for very, very different processes throughout as well. So they were looking to change their ATS provider to us. Thank you very much. To improve their process, their user experience, both internally and externally. That's really, really key, I think, and to drive efficiencies. And I'm sure you can see by Sally's video that we have delivered that. So let's have a look.
My name is Sally Bradbery. I'm Group Resource Manager for Barratt Developments plc. Barratt Developments comprises of a number of brands. So we've got Barratt Homes, David Wilson Homes, Barratt London and Wilson Barratt Developments. So within those brands we've got 28 divisions that operate across the UK. So all the way up from Aberdeen all the way down to Exeter. And we've also got a group support function in Leicester and in London. So we've got just over 6,500 people in the organisation. So we don't have a recruitment central resourcing team here at Barratt Development, so it's quite a small team. We have got HR managers and then we've also got 2 people in the group resourcing function, so we don't actually have a resourcing team here. So we recruit for a range of roles. We recruit operationally, so commercial, technical, construction, sales, finance and land. And we also recruit into our support functions, so IT roles, HR, law, finance and executive roles as well. Recruitment became a sort of central objective for the organisation. It became critical. The construction industry has a skill shortage, so we aim to be more proactive in our recruitment strategy. We had an ATS in place already, which had been in place for 10 years, so it was a really old ATS system, and as part of the strategy we updated our careers website. So when we went to the careers website and then went through and applied, there was a disconnect between the careers website and the ATS system sitting in the background. We wanted a bit more of a consistent approach for the candidates and also a modern ATS system which enabled us to track and report more efficiently than what we were doing, so it was all manual, and we also wanted the candidates to have a better journey on applying online as well. It was really difficult to navigate, it was time consuming, it didn't integrate with job boards, reporting was really clunky, and end to end it was just a really hard system to navigate around. It integrated slightly, so we integrate with SHL, So Change.Now, which was our old system, did integrate with SHL, but it didn't integrate with video interviewing, which was something that we were really keen to bring into the organisation from a cost perspective, but also to modernise our recruitment strategy. So we selected Eploy as our recruitment partners purely for the fact that they were the most advanced in the marketplace. We felt that it had longevity and that they were also ahead of the other competitors that were in that space. So we engaged with a variety of people across the group. So we had a steering committee which was headed up by our HR director, which enabled us to engage with peers across the group. In terms of the direct project team, we had a business lead and we also had a project manager to ensure that we were on track. And then in terms of the wider project team, we had a few key people that sort of looked after specific areas. For example, the onboarding, the integrations, and then the reporting as well. The integrations were a real key element to our project, purely for the fact that we have graduate and apprentice recruitment, which had the integrations that were required. Our apprentice programme was going live in March. There was a real need to have in the integrations for the minute we went live. So I would say yes, we did have to sort of bring them to the forefront and work really closely with our implementation manager at Eploy to ensure that they were doing it. So if I take, for example, the graduate recruitment process, so if you were looking for a role in our graduate programme, you'd go to the careers website and then click on the apply button to be able to directly go through. They can apply on mobile and they can apply on desktop as well, which was a real key feature for us when we were looking at the early careers workspace. Once they've applied, they go straight into the online application form. If we're using CV parsing as well, so it could parse their CVs. To make it really quick and easy. So in the initial application process for graduates, it can be as quick as 4 minutes for them to apply, and then straight away they go into an SJT test. So that's a situational judgment test which tests their response and how they would react in certain situations that are relevant to the construction industry. After that, it passes back an automated response, so the system works out for us whether it's a pass or fail and rejects candidates and then moves them into sort of a screening application process. We then screen the candidates, look at their CVs, look at their situational test results, and then choose whether we want to either regret them or take them on to the next stage. Once we've done that, we invite them to a video interview, and then the video interview is scored manually and then moved across again. After that, we've got another process that they do SHL psychometric testing. So the system again does very similar to what the SJT does. It initiates the test and then they complete the test, and the Eploy system decides whether it's a pass or fail and automatically does that for us, and then automatically moves them into the assessment centre stage. So it's quite early to say. We are 4 months into our implementation now, and it is quite embedded into the business. The initial feedback that we've had from candidates is that it seems a lot more modernised, it was really easy, the communications coming from the system were really good. They were able to log into their portal and see where their application process is. And we've also had very similar feedback from agencies. So we use quite a number of agencies across the group. And our agencies are feeding back to us that it's really easy to receive job descriptions now, grading pay bands, business benefits, and also to be able to see exactly where a candidate is with a hiring manager without having to pick up the phone. So that is really useful when we're looking at the candidate journey, but also the customer journey in terms of our agency as well. So our hiring managers historically didn't really use an ATS system, so for them they're probably seeing enhanced benefits that many organisations are used to seeing, so they're much more engaged in the recruitment process now than they have done before. They are screening their own candidates rather than PAs screening their candidates for them. They're able to see it online, they're able to do it on their iPads. They're able to work on trains, because a lot of our hiring managers are quite mobile across the country. They're also able to see the candidates' details all in one place, and more importantly, reporting for us. So they're able to see instant reporting, so they're able to just literally log in, and then on the dashboard they can see exactly where a candidate is, they can see exactly how many applications they've got, they can see where they've come from, which they may need to use in the future, so if they've got another commercial role, and they're really struggling to think where to advertise it. They can historically look and think, well, okay, I did really well on LinkedIn, or I did really well on the job boards, so they thought, I need to make sure that I post that sort of role in that area as well. So for them, it's a lot more transparency and a lot more hands-on for them, but it's not giving them more work. It just feels like they're really bought into the process. 16 weeks from the point of signing the contract is how long it took to implement. I would say that was quite intense, 16 weeks, and ideally we probably wanted to have it across around a 20 to 24 week period, but our current contract with our ATS plan didn't allow us to do that, so it was 16 weeks, but a very intense 16 weeks. I would say just take time over testing, so really expand on your testing time and your project plan. So when you think you've put enough time in for testing, probably put an extra 2 weeks in. We just felt like the testing time, we had loads of time, and it never really worked out like that. We were constantly trying to bring it back in. So I would say always allow loads of time for testing, and just engagement, like keeping people up to date in the organisation about what you're doing, and making sure that you're touching base with key stakeholders that need to know what's happening. And another lesson for me is don't try and please everybody. Just try and nail down your recruitment processes, nail down what you're trying to achieve, because everybody, particularly in a large organisation, will want something different. So when you try to please everyone, it's just never going to work. So for us, it's to implement the onboarding. So we held up on the onboarding approach. So we did all of the implementation apart from onboarding, purely for the fact that we felt it would be too much impact on our divisions to roll it out all in one go and too much change. So for us now, over the next sort of quarter, it will be to phase out the onboarding module. Also, we will be updating our careers website, and for us, it will be taking advantage of the talent pooling facility that Eploy offers, which is something that we've never had before. So we integrate much more now with job board because of Eploy. So now we've got a talent pool that we can target. So this is a real focus for us over the next 6 months. The structure of our divisions is quite complex. So we've got 28 different divisions, and we like to think that they all operate in the same way, but typically they don't. So I would say that was a big one for us. Resource as well, we're a really small HR team, even though we're a really large organisation, and we all carried on our day jobs. So we didn't have a project team that just delivered Eploy. We still had to deliver what we need to deliver in terms of our day-to-day roles. The time to get it in was really intense for us as a project team, but also for the business. Budget was a real limitation for us, and when we first looked at Eploy, we just thought we would never ever be able to put the budget behind it. But actually, when we compared it to what we were already paying for a really archaic system, it was actually the like for like really, which was surprising to us.
There we go. So quite a lot of insights there from Sally, I think, actually, on how the implementation ran. I was actually the implementation manager, so I built their system and delivered their system. I'll agree with Sally, it was a lot to do in a very short space of time. We had a lot of complex integrations. But I kind of hope you get that message there about kind of how, particularly the graduate recruitment was delivered. It was actually, and actually all of the early careers as well, very, very complex in how we kind of pass from one integration to another, but from a candidate journey, completely seamless. So just a few bits to kind of wrap up. So there's a little bit there about kind of what their strategy was, which hopefully was reflected in Sally's video there, but really looking at kind of like the variable workflows, automating as much as possible, and connecting internally and externally. And then in terms of the APIs and kind of how things work there, this is kind of the journey that Sally was talking about there. So early careers and also armed forces and sales works in a very similar way in terms of the way a candidate will move through the journey. So parts of these in the way it's been built in the system is some things will kind of like auto move a candidate to the next stage. Sometimes it's actually about somebody actually having to take a manual step and actually reviewing something and then actually moving the candidate on, and then the automation kicks in to actually pick up and trigger the stage. So great. Key achievements, so visibility across the whole recruitment process. So we've been back and done lots of kind of on-site days and consultation and work with the team. And they continue to say, I can't believe how much I can see. We really know what's going on now. We've been very surprised by how much is going on. We didn't think that much activity was going on, but now I can actually visualise it and see what's going on and come up with an appropriate plan to tackle it. The connections, just how little kind of human interaction is needed to go through that sifting process until after that video interview. So I think we've had a couple of points today where we've talked about, certainly on that first round table, about actually how much should you automate until when. It's a very fine line. And also the innovation. And then their key takeaways. So echoing a point I kind of made earlier, so knowing your receptivity to change and technical change. It's a really, really key one. What are the critical inputs? Testing time. Test it, test it, test it again. That's what all your implementation managers should say to you. But it's crazy actually. You think you leave plenty of time for testing, but just actually, you know, you always need more. So I would say double whatever you think you're going to need. Be prepared to find things that you didn't know, new ways of working and how you manage those changes. So if you don't really have a visible kind of process, you don't really know what's going on. If you're bringing in a process, you're going to find all the bodies that have been buried under the carpet for a couple of years. You're going to find them, expect to find them, and then just figure out how you're going to deal with it. And evaluate your progress and communicate the benefits back to the business so it goes back to the stakeholder engagement. Okay, I think that's it. So Sally/Kim. Thank you.
Comes up quite a lot in a lot of the Q&As that we do, especially with automation. Have they seen any sort of drop-off rate because of the lack of human interaction in that sort of process, or is that something that they're purposely trying to do for different roles?
Again, quite varied, so certainly kind of around the early careers, it is about the attraction piece. So she mentioned there's quite a skill shortage in the construction industry, so it's about the attraction and retention. Don't believe there's ever been any drop-off in those rates, apart from where it's kind of needed to screen people out. So I think, Alison, we were chatting, weren't we, on our table a little while ago, about where do you draw the line with automation. And for me, it's critical, and I would say, you know, as a takeaway from me to you, is think about where you draw the line. It's not meant to replace all the human interactions, it's meant to work alongside it. So fully automating something is amazing, but if you lose, you know, who you are and the being in the fibre of your company, then actually should you really take it that far? So looking at that kind of fine line in between the two.
And lastly, unless anyone else has got any questions, it's like a Q&A, isn't it? She mentioned 16 weeks for the implementation.
Yep.
What would you normally say? 'Cause she obviously said that was quite a quick, intense 16 weeks.
It was.
What is the normal sort of time frame for implementation?
Yep, varies. So we were working with two different external providers as well, and creating a career site for them too. So that was actually from the point they kind of like signed on the dotted line and then moved into implementation. So there's like a week or two there where we transition and actually start the project. So typically 12 to 15 weeks for a standard implementation, and then typically, you know, maybe 3, maybe 6 weeks, depending on what you need in terms of integrations, but it varies. But we do deliver projects. I've delivered projects in 4 weeks. So, you know, we do that fairly frequently. We call them rapid implementations. You know, I've done other customers as well. Companies this size, I've delivered in 6 weeks. So, you know, it's really quite flexible, and we work to what the customer can do. Yeah, absolutely. So flexibility, always.